Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. B. Mahalakshmi, Assistant Professor in the Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. So today we are going to see about the video concept digital and mobile forensics. Android debug bridge is an important concept in that Android forensics tools. So here we are going to see about Android debug bridge. So Android Debug Bridge, ADB, shortly we called as an ADB, is one of the command line tool. That command line tool provided by Android that allow the computer to communicate directly with the Android device. The name itself saying it's one of the bridge. Okay, it's one of the command line tool. Using the tool, let me communicate with the device. It's nothing but it's provided by Android that allow the computer to communicate directly with the Android devices. So Android debug bridge as a bridge between, okay, it's a bridge between the computer, that is investigators, system, administrators and developers, Android devices like mobile phone and tablet. So here why that is what that the ADB is typically used to communicate with a smartphone, tablet and then smartwatch, set-top box or other devices that can run by the Android OS. So here why, what is the use of this Android debug bridge? It's nothing but install application manually and then debug that install application tool manually and debug Android applications and access the hidden system functions, execute the Linux and Unix commands on the devices, collect the forensics evidence from the Android devices. So devices supported for this Android debug bridge. So what are the devices we saw here? Smartphones, tablet, or that smartwatches, that Android TV boxes, emulators, any Android based devices. So next one is for the security reason, developers options need to be unlocked and you need to have USB debugging mode enabled as well. So here that is enable the step 1, it is enable the uh, developer options and enable the USB debugging. That is nothing but developer options are hidden by the default and enable the USB debugging. This allow the device to accept the ADB commands. And next one is it is authorized, allow the USB debugging. The user must approve the connected computer. So here this the Android debugging bridge follows the, it's similar as we have the client server architecture. So client server and here we have the daemon is that ADBD. So these components works together to establish the communication. So let me see what are the components. There are 3 components is there in the client server program. One is client. So here we are saying that client which send the commands, the clients run, the architecture diagrams is there. The clients runs on the development mission. You can invoke the client from the command line terminal by issuing the ADB commands. ADB commands. The client is a command interface used by the user. So run on the investigators or developers computer. Example of the client is ADB devices, ADB shell or ADB pull. So which these commands are entered, the client send the request to the ADB server. So here the role accept, the client role is accept the user commands, send the commands to the server and display the result. So next one is, so here we have the daemon which run the commands on the devices. So that runs the background process on each devices. So is a background service running on the Android devices. Location is run inside the Android device daemon. Responsibilities for this ADB the commanders receives the commands, execute the commands and return the results. So here if you want to list out the Linux commands, for an example, if you want to list out what are the commands, Linux commands is there in the example is the syntax is ADB shell LX. Next one is what? Here we have the server. Okay, so here it is how it's worked they shown. So here we have this Kali Linux terminals we'll use. So using that, we can use the we can connect the server. Client must connect the server by the ADB server commands, and here they list out some options are there, how to execute. Okay. Next one is what? Here the server based, these are the commands they gave. The next one I will explain what is server. Server is acts as a mediator between the client and Android devices. So like locations run on the computer. Responsibility for the server is manage device connections, routes commands, and handle the communication. So the communication flow in this Android debug bridges user, that ADB client, and after that it flowed go to the ADB server and that ADB device and then Android devices. So here how it will work, in the sense it will work by the process of user execute the command and check for the existing server, that is the client check whether ADB server is already running, or else it will establish the new connections, and the server uses the port, that is 5037, the TCP port, that is all ADB clients communicate through this port, and it's detect the connected devices and emulator detections, that these ports are used by the Android emulators, and establish the communication between the user and system. So here this these are the requirements to run the command. We need that that is settings about the, for if it is a phone, settings about the phone, and tap the build number 5-7 times. So here this ADB commands, some purposes commands I listed here. So here first one is what? ADB devices, it's print the connected devices, and ADB kill server, it will kill the ADB existing server. ADB root, to get the root access, and ADB wait for devices, it's nothing but that is wait for the ADB devices, and shell stop thermal engine, stopping the system service, and ADB install, it is used to install the application in ADB. The shell is initiate the shell, and then ADB pull is a copy the file or directory from the devices. Push means copy the file or directory to the devices. And here that is port forwarding, we are using this TCP 6100 is to 7. So ADB 4 and 6, that is Android based, Android 4 and 6 for the digital forensics investigator, that ADB provides means to access the Android devices and extract the valuable evidence, digital evidence that can serve, that the digital evidence is playing an important role for that investigation concept. Some key features that in that ADB context, that ADB 4 and 6 included. So here we saw that access the device file system, that is it allow the investigator to access internal storage, SD card, and system directories, and evidence retrieved, documents or videos or photos, call logs, images we can retrieve, and existing shell commands. So that is help the investigator to execute the shell, that is Linux based command. Benefits is identify running processes and check the network connections and examine the system activity by using this shell command, and extracting application data. The investigator can collect the application related evidence, for an example WhatsApp database, browser history, and app preference, and cache files. So here it's playing important, many criminal activities leave the traces inside their applications data. So these are the main context playing in the Android 4 and 6 included. Okay, so here in this video we saw about this Android debug bridge and what are the important commands we have in ADB, and we saw about this Android 4 and 6 tools like devices and shell commands and application oriented. Thank you so much. Let me say by the next video. Thank you.